Yanam Yanam Nanai
Are you willing to start with a few questions this morning? Hello?
You want to ask a question?
Yes,
Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm actually not sure if I can get these questions straight. But some of the things you said during the Fabringen, I wasn't quite clear on. You said that Shefa,
A little bit upwards.
Shefa, we say, with respect to Ayr, we say it could be Ayin Seif, but we don't say Ayin Techila. Right?
Right.
Because it has a beginning in its source, and it's always connected to its source. But then Shefa, we say Ain Chila with Shefa because it's an independent entity.
Well, we don't say it officially, but that's what it is. In this context, Shefa becomes an entity unto itself. And in fact, Ein Lo Tchila. What does it mean, Ein Lo Tchila? It has whatever it is, and it's missing the Tchila. Let me explain to you what it means.
Okay. Do you understand why I'm asking the question?
Well, I answer much your question. Yeah, I mean, this is fine.
Yeah,
and,
fine.
and it's important to understand for many other reasons. When you throw a rock, what is the tchila of this throw? The tchila of this throw is the aim of the target that you want to hit. When the rock is flying, you have imbued the rock with the ability to fly, but not with the ability to have the target in mind. The rock doesn't know that it's flying toward a target. It has the element that it's flying upwards, whatever be direction and wherever it's flying. So it has its complete presence that it is flying, but it doesn't have the tchila it doesn't have. Ein Lo Tchila. Becomes an entity unto itself. Think about this for a moment and see how the scientists look at the world. Ein Lo Tchila. It's completely self-contained, and it works completely within its own parameters, its own context. The whole effort in explaining the world and all the various results and processes and all that is all to justify this concept. That the world is Ein Lo Tchila. It has no aim, it has no purpose. It has no tchila. Once you have that clear, you see how ridiculous that whole concept is. It's like saying the rock is flying, but there was no initiator. It's flying upwards with a name, with a goal, with an obvious purpose, but the purpose is not contained within the rock, but there is not the one that that has that purpose.
So this doesn't really have anything to do with the Ein Lo Techila of Atzmus, which we're normally contrasting with Yesh Techila. Or it does. It obviously doesn't.
Well, Atzmus is Ein Lo Techila, because Atzmus in itself actually is everything. Is everything.
So I'm saying this is not at all like that. This is a kind of ironic use.
That's right. Anything that is in a state of a mitzvah. That's why we said, and this is something which everybody felt on Thursday. We said that etzem that which Ein Lo Techila doesn't have a mitzvah. Anything that has a mitzvah has to have a techila.
What we're saying here, that was I guess what struck me here. We're saying actually that Shefa. Here we're saying that Oyer has a techila, whereas Shefa doesn't.
Right.
It's self-contained. If it's self-contained, it's a Metzias. Everything that's a Metzias is quote-unquote self-contained. So on the one hand, we're saying Ein Sof has Ein Lo Techila. We're saying, ironically, Metzias looks the same way.
In the opposite direction. All right, let's put that aside now.
I have one other. Can I ask one other question?
Yes, you could. Go ahead.
Okay. So I just, for those people who work at Fabrian, so maybe it's not a fair question, but the point of your discussion of Moshe and the Mishkan there, in relation to this, as opposed to
Moshe and the Mishkan.
the other aspects of that discussion. I still didn't get, after I asked you yesterday, I still didn't get the connection. How does that relate to Oyer and Shefa, or was that not necessary to understand?
No, I pointed out that the Pasuk says Moshe completed the Mishkan. So what happened when he completed the Mishkan? Then the Tchila, the initial sense, the initial quality, aim of the Mishkan now came to function, came to full revelation. The reason the Mishkan is not a Metzias unto itself, the Mishkan is related to also the Mitzvah B'Soichom. Throughout the time that they were working, they did everything perfectly. And Moshe was constantly praising the Eden. They did everything exactly the way Hashem said. And then when Moshe actually put the Mishkan together, then it became something completely different. It was not just the structure, it was now the Gili HaShechina. This is the principle that we're saying, that Oyer can be Ein Sof, but Yesh Lo Techila. What is the Techila? The Techila is what it represents.
Okay. All right, thank you.
What was the last part? Sorry.
What?
I was interrupted. What was the last part?
That after the Mishkan was completed, so you think, okay, now it's the structure is there. That's all that you have. No, it's not. Now, first the Tchila, the initial purpose, is now first coming to expression. Now you first recognize what it is, because the Mishkan, just like Eden, we said yesterday that Eden is showing is Chelik Kami Ma'al Mamush, does not become a separate entity. The Mishkan also doesn't become a separate entity, despite the fact that it was made of wood and gold.
Besides the marvelous outcome that the Shekhinah dwelled, what What does it show us?
It shows us that the Mishkan is Yesh Le'Tchila. That's what said by Oyer Yesh Le'Tchila. It's exactly what we're learning, right? Yesh Le'Tchila. It's not what the structure is.
So somehow we relate it to Or, to the concept of
This
Or.
is a similar principle of the same over here. Oyer is only safe. It's enormous, but the Tchila remains. Yesh Le'Tchila. Doesn't get independent Tchila.
The rock that's being thrown, that has also the throw itself doesn't have a tequila. It has a tequila. It has the person
Independent,
who aimed it.
unrelated to the rock. That was not imbued into the rock.
The aim.
The aim. The rock is not aiming at the target.
Okay.
It is flying.
The world, it is imbued with the kavana of the aim.
This is what our job is,
To reveal the tequila.
to reveal its hue. This is what our job is. This is what, it conceals completely its source.
Our job is what? To reveal its tequila?
Right?
Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm. But the world on its own, if you want to understand the world, what the world stands for as itself, it conceals completely any source and any purpose. It's called the Helm of Hester, the Helm of the Tzimtzum. And it is our job, Yidden, as we said all the time, that a Yid, his presence in the world, brings the Tchila into the world, and ultimately through his Avodah, he actually is mevared the world, that the world should become representative of its Tchila.
This is what Adam Arishon accomplished.
Yeah. The
In
Maggid
that case,
says,
the world would become like Or, right?
yeah, well, it is Oyer. It is Oyer. The Alter Rebbe explained that the whole thing, it seems that it's a mitzvah, when in truth it is not.
It will become Paul.
It will become Elokus, yeah.
So the Medrash says,
Remember says that as soon as Adam opened his eyes, the first thing he did is gather all the animals, and he said, let us thank our Creator. Because that's what Adam stands for.
Going back to the mashal of the rock, I'm just imagining the situation where the rock is thrown without a target in mind.
That's our target in mind.
The rock is being thrown without a target in mind.
Right, that's what we discussed here. If it's thrown without a target in mind, then nothing has been given to the rock. This is a perfectly natural thing.
Could we associate this to the vision of the scientist? Or
Well, I don't know. You could, but they argue that it's not true. They argue the world is a wonderful place. And it's developing. And it's expanding. And it has a ongoing cycle.
it's its own Tchila.
It's in its own key.
This is what Avraham Avinu disputed. He clarified this. Like the truth.
Yeah, and since then we're still in dispute. All right. So we are still on the sinyan of Oir and Atzilus.
easier stuff.
Huh?
We're doing easier stuff.
Easy stuff. Right. And we are going to go back a little bit. Jim just jump in the middle. Having in mind that we already learned certain things, we already discussed it. The second line from the top, on page Gimel. And the difficult point that we are challenged to understand is, we were saying the whole time that oil is like the etzem, because it's initiated by the etzem. It represented the etzem. Yesh le'tchila. And therefore the oil remains dobuk to the etzem. We explained to some degree the principle of dveikus, which is the most important point over here. You know how dveikus. Dveikus, when we talk about oil is dobuk, is not a dveikus like you're medabek two things. You can understand the dveikus. We discussed it when we learned it. And I don't remember exactly when, sometimes last week, that there is one obvious element in the dveikus of the oil. It is that when the moyer becomes concealed, there's no oil. This is called dependency. This is not dveikus. It's dependent on the moyer to be present and to give off oil. But the presence of the oil, when it is present, is a mitzias of oil. Is an entity unto itself. It speaks for itself, but it doesn't exist unless something produces it. Like we said, the energy element of the sun. The energy of the sun is also constantly dependent of coming out from the sun. And as soon as the energy emanates from the sun, and it is exhausted, so to speak, then it has to be rejuvenated, come back from the sun. Otherwise, it's not going to be here. Every second, there's another oil that hits the object and reverberates from the object and hits and meets our eyes. So that is not the dveikus. This is what's called dependency. Somebody has a job, and he is dependent on this job to pay his rent. Does this mean that he is dobuk to his job? What do you think?
Hope not.
He's not dobuk to his job. His landlord doesn't care what he does with that money. And not his landlord, his employer.
He was covered to it until the current president came along.
Okay. Dveikus is a different concept. Again, it's one of those subtle things which we can definitely understand. Dveikus is not dependency, but it is part of the description of the oil itself when it is present. That the presence of the oil consists in pointing to the moil. This is the principle of Beis. We discuss it. Is it clear? Do I have to? Well, we discuss it.
While it's or, it's pointing to it, in its functional state. It's pointing back to the Mara.
That's right. Okay, let's leave it on there.
Is it truly functional, the ore?
Yeah, makes light.
Or is that a different aspect of the ore, a different level of ore? The ore that's Davik is etzem oriented, but the ore that is functional seems to be otherwise.
No. Oyer. Why is it otherwise? Because we don't understand what functional means. Function, again, we distinguish between the physicality of the oil and the principle of oil.
Okay. And
The
within
first
that
day
dis-
of creation, the first day of creation. Vayem Elokim hi oyer vayhi oyer. Vayar Elokim es oyer ki toiv. What kind of oil was this? There was no luminary, there was no sun.
Do we say that had a physicality, that
I
ore?
don't know what it had. It has oil. What was it? What kind of oil was it? On the contrary, that oil was pure, had no physicality. In other words, that oil really brought a new dimension to the world. And that's why Vayel Kim is oil ki toiv. The oil is toiv because it brings this new dimension. What is this new dimension?
This is the presence of Hashem.
Physicality.
This is the oil reveals the total unity of everything. That's what we spoke the other week, and the last week. The true oil, true principle of oil, is on par with darkness. Just like darkness and has no oil. Oil has no darkness. Oil is not to counter darkness. This is a subset of oil that we have. But the true meaning of oil is oil. That's what he said. It had to be nivda. Because oil negates the whole mitzvah of darkness. Okay? I really don't think, okay. This is all discussed and it's all recorded. All right. So what is the Dveikus mean? Again, coming to Dveikus, okay? Dveikus means that the oil is not an entity unto itself. Whenever there is atom, there is oil. And the oil represents the presence of the atom. Meaning to say, why is there oil? Why is there oil? Because the atom is an atom. Perhaps I should explain this principle. Let's understand why is that an atzmi have oil?
Because it's not limited. If you say a definition, atzmi doesn't have the parameters. So memela, it's mispashit. It has all. It's not just limited to one thing.
Right. That is correct, but it's correct, but not 100% correct.
Okay.
Because atzmi is not mispashit. The union of oyer from atzmi. Mispashit, this is like mispashit. He can relate to darkness and mispashit into darkness. That's the subset of it. The whole mitzvah of oil, as comes from atzmus, etzm, is etzem means that it is this truth through and through. It cannot tolerate, it cannot recognize, it cannot relate to something that is not this truth. Therefore, by definition, etzem is everywhere. This is the oyer Allah.
What does that have to do with oyer being the presence?
Okay, Baruch. Okay, leave it. You understand?
Leave it?
No, leave it, Baruch, please.
Why does it mean it's everywhere?
We have to connect to everything that was said, everything I've been saying, said, we'll never get out. What?
Why does it mean it's everywhere?
Because it's a etzem. It cannot tolerate anything that is not it. It is the reality itself. Let's bring it down to earth in something we should discuss. A human being has the quality that he is an atzmi. Because of that, he can own property. And we explained what his ownership of property is. His home. Does he become bigger because he has a home? Does he have a bigger home? If a person has a home and adds another room, does he become bigger? He's mispashik more? Nothing happens. So how does he get there? He was in this home, now all of a sudden he's expanded to another room. Everything that constitutes his home, he is there automatically. He cannot tolerate any other possibility. Like we say all the time, nobody can intrude into this home, even if it doesn't interfere with his functionality. This is not a functional element, it's not his pashtus, it's his presence. He is present everywhere. In his entire home. Why? Because his presence, his reality is beyond functionality. Every other creature in the world is limited to its functionality, except for the human being. He has a real presence.
What deserves the title Atzmi? You're saying the sun is an Atzmi, a human being is an Atzmi. What makes things really an Atzmi? Because they're really not Atzmi.
What?
Atzmi, the real Atzmi is Hashem. So what?
No. Of course. The atzmius of a human being is the fact that he was created to represent Hashem. He has a real presence. He is present. Please, we don't want to go to everything. Do we understand? A human being in this world is for the sake of being what he is. There's no other creature in the world that has that. His presence itself is the real thing. We've gone through this many times. If you want to go every time, you'll never get out. Leave it at that. Why does a human being own property and an animal cannot own property? Does everybody understand it? Please. If anybody has a problem with that, please tell me. So can a cat own property? Can a lion own property? Everybody, is perplexed because a lion has its stirrup and protects its. Does he own that property? He cannot own property.
Ownership is a human convention. It's a concept.
He cannot own property. Only a human being can own property. Truly own. Because his presence in the world permeates the entire metzius of the world. Like the Pasuk says, a human being was given the right and the function, the purpose, to be kodesh the world. And this is why he has a real element of ownership.
How is that connected to what you just said before, which is that the human being is what he is? He's just his reality. That's the significant thing, not the function. What is that?
What is he? That's what you said. But he's not real. Hashem made him. He has a real
in
reality in the world.
So what? Yeah, and
that's his reality.
And how does that connect to ownership?
Therefore, he can own a piece of the world, because his presence in the world has a reality element.
Truth, right, or truth, right? Truth and right, because he represents Hashem. He's like an image of Hashem, right? So that gives him the right. Right? Is that?
However you want to frame it, do we understand that a human being exclusively has ownership? If you understand that, if we sense that, then we can focus in on and go further and understand what's so special about the human being.
Yeah.
If we think that it's all a convention, like Shmuel said, forget about it. Huh? I'm sorry. I don't hear what you said.
You need vodka, not water, to make it through this class.
Okay, so we sense that a human being has ownership, and we sense that a cat cannot own. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, Baruch Hashem.
And ownership. Okay.
That's why you sense it, because this is not a seichel. This is not a seichel that can be self-contained. This has to relate to the reality of the world itself.
He's the balabas. He's a balabas.
He's a balabas of the world. He has to relate to the reality of the world. This is not conventional. This is not on a functional level. Like we point out, halachically, a person owns a piece of property. Karka eina nigzelis, which means that even if he is deceased and he has children and children inherit his property and they don't even know that he owns the property, it's still his. If you take a look in halacha, the principle of ownership, transfer of ownership, it's all that, is with such minute clarity and such minute care. Forget it, let him take it. No, he has to have a proper transfer. Otherwise it's xela.
Interesting that ownership per se is the activity or the feature that makes manifest his etzem quality.
Yes, because his presence in the world has been given to him as a reality, and therefore he has the possibility, capability of owning property. And we explain this in various angles. This must be clear in our minds. Otherwise, it's no point of going right.
Kivshuha, the world somehow doesn't want this to be owned. Kivshuha, the world objects somehow to this ownership, or no?
Kivshuha means that you have to humanize it.
Yeah.
You have to not only declare it, but to humanize it. A human being such as A midbar is not. A midbar is not a dwelling place for a human being. If a human being should, if he should koibesh the desert, he has to make the desert into a livable place.
So the term humanizing, almost, does that parallel when you say that the up points to the ma'ar? So the Welt has to point that it's from the
Ultimately.
It's the same.
Ultimately, yeah. All right. So.
I apologize. I have something at school. I'm going to listen. I have something to go to school from right here.
Okay. So. This ownership element, and everybody understands it. Gemara says, "Odom shein lebayis einay odom." Odom shein lebayis einay odom, which means an individual who does not have a home doesn't mean he owns. He has a home, even if he rents it. But a rental is a purchase, a temporary purchase. So he has a home. If einay bayis einay odom, it does not mean. Please understand, he does not mean that he is homeless and he lives in the street. Even if he lives in hotels, and he lives in the Wall of Astoria, and he can afford to pay for it, Eino Yodom. He's not a man. Because what makes Odom, an Odom, he has a Mokim Kovua. This is his place. And nothing to do with functionality.
A place that he's humanizing and developing, or just that he has?
That he has. This attested he is a presence in the world, and he has a Mokim Kovua, that's his. Please take care of yourself, and whatever is left, Okay, that's it. Thank you. Yeah. He has a Mokim Kavua. Then he's a. The Rebbe spoke about this when I mentioned this several times lately. Howard Hughes. Anybody remember Howard Hughes? I don't know if you remember. It's before your time. Howard Hughes was the wealthiest man in the world. His wealth was beyond human conception. He was wealthier than many nations in the world. And Hughes? I don't think so. He wasn't. He was an engineer. He was a very bright engineer. So when he died, they never spoke about it. He is a man who was phenomenally wealthy. He had not a moment of life. He was not for real. He was not for real. He did not sleep 2 nights in a row in the same bed, in the same location. He was always flying in the huge entourage, on airplanes, on the helicopters. He was in one hotel tonight, another hotel elsewhere. He was all over the place. He was not a man.
Not that I saw that not so much in Kurdish. Towards the end of life, they said he was recluse. He stayed in one place.
He was reckless.
He was paranoid.
He was reckless altogether. He was not a man. In other words, by worldly parameters, he has got everything he wants. But by godly parameters, what the Rebbe made a human being, he lacked. It was not for real. His presence was an immeasurable sense. What's a measurable sense? How much money does he have? A human being's presence is not measurable. It's real.
So people who live a nomadic existence are not, they have territory that cover, they travel through.
Do you think they have a presence? A mokin kavua?
But they're human.
They're human potentially, but they don't experience their humanity. I'm sorry?
Can we apply this principle we just understood here and explained in terms of property to the seichel, meaning if a person just flies like
Okay, you know what?
not
Please, I have enough.
Sorry.
to get through this. All right. So that's why an etzem has oir. It means that an etzem, wherever he is, his presence is not limited to himself, but he encompasses the entire environment. Like a person in his home, he's not in a place where he's sitting. He is in every corner of the home. Why? Because this is his home. This is his mokin kavua. This oir that this makes it, that spreads in the entire home. This is what's called dovug beho etzem. Even though he owns a property and he paid for it and so forth, but the real property, the real ownership is not due to the fact that he paid for it, but the fact that he is everywhere. Because the oil of an etzem has oil, which means because etzem encompasses everything that is within his environment, within his reach. And this is what we said. Please, I understand. We said this is called Oyer Ein Sof. Why is it called Oyer Ein Sof? Because the etzem is Ein Sof. A human being, we gave very clear demonstration of this. A human being is also an atzmi, right? Because his presence in the world is, for its own sake, has a reality. But he is very limited. If he has a home, he occupies the entire home. But if you give him his home, the Empire State Building as his home, he cannot possibly occupy this home. Because he has a limited perception, a limited spread, a limited concept, presence. So if the Empire State Building would be his dwelling, it would be a fake. He would not be present everywhere. Because he can't really orient himself in that kind of a spread.
The or is not dependent on his conception, but here it kind of is. By his home, he's in one place, but he's everywhere. But
because he conceptualizes it.
So the
because he can relate to it, sure.
Yeah. So or does depend on his cognition, on his.
Yeah, because he is a human being. Like, why doesn't a cat have ownership? Because a cat doesn't perceive ownership. A human being does perceive ownership, but he perceives ownership within certain parameters.
But he can perceive owning a field on the other side of the country.
That's a different thing. That's ownership on a property level. There's a dwelling ownership and there's a property. All right. So this is the meaning of the word Oir is dovug beho etzem. Which means that the oil brings the etzem wherever it is. If you go into somebody's home, and this home represents him wherever you turn, it has tables and chairs. It has pictures on the wall. It has clocks on the wall. it has carpet on the floor, and it has all kinds of different rooms that serve the human beings. You know, the kitchen and the bathroom, and the bedroom, and so forth. He has bookcases. He has a whole human spread. A whole human spread. This is part of his oil. This is part of defining the human being. All of this is representative of what? Of his presence. You can have a library in a library. It's not the same as a library in a home. You can have a kitchen in the restaurant. It's not the same as a kitchen in the home. You can have a bedroom in the hotel. It's not the same as a bedroom in the home. You understand the principle here? This is pshat oil, pshat etzem dobik b'hu etzem. Oil dobik b'hu etzem. No matter what aspects you reveal from that oil, which is a human dwelling, right? So you reveal all kinds of different things of that oil. No matter what aspect you reveal, it is still part of the oil that is connected to the earth. That is its main quality. What makes it real is the fact that there is the etzem, the person.
Right, so you have to be able to relate to it. Like you said, you're addict.
Yeah, that's what a human being has the capacity to relate to. Mokim Kavua. This is his place. This is not functional in his place. This is his place.
Why is it some people think like they...
Okay, that Beis Why some people think themselves as cats? I don't know.
No, some people can have a big presence. Some people have a small presence.
That depends on the personality. Sure.
Yeah. Sure. Some people can relate to more.
That's right. To bigger things. Yeah, of course.
What is that the result of it? Why is that?
Depending on what kind of crib they had.
I want to relate to a bigger house.
Why?
I know you're asking that from time.
All right. So now, they'll be saying that this principle, that oir is dobik b'hu etzem, continues to emanate even when you have a tzimtzum. I don't know how to give a kind of a human motion to a tzimtzum. Perhaps some kind of on an expanded level, you could say if the home has a courtyard, where a person does not really live in the courtyard, but this is the entrance to his home. As a matter of fact, there's an interesting halacha. The halacha is that every doorpost has to have, every door has to have a mezuzah, provided that this leads to a room that has a certain size. What if the room does not have the size, the requisite 4x4, but it is a doorway, it is a hallway into a bigger room. So this hallway also is mechuyev in mezuzah, because it leads to the real home. So this is like a subset of the home, perhaps. Okay. All right. I try my best. Then there is the tzimtzum. The tzimtzum is conceal the oil, which means, in effect, atzum is not present. There's no atzum's presence of atzum. Conceal the whole oil. And then, after the tzimtzum, the oil was reintroduced, and it came down through the tzimtzum, after the tzimtzum. But that reintroduction is in a different manner. It is not a direct connect to the etzim. So the etzim is there, the oil is there because it was a tzimtzum. Now it goes through a process, a conduit, a narrow passage. It becomes a cup. It becomes a narrow passage. This is not representative of the etzim. There's a break in the connection. There's a break in the connection. So the oil that comes after the tzimtzum. Now we see exclusively oil, we don't see the etzim. Because it was a tzimtzum. So we say no. Even there, the oil remains dovuk b'hoetz. That is much more challenging, and we have to really, hopefully, after all this suffering, we hopefully will be able to understand this.
So we're saying it's dovuk, but there was an interruption.
There was an interruption, and yet it's dovuk. Okay, that's why we have to have a much more sensitive thinking process. Okay, I don't know. We spoke many times that what the sunlight in the daytime, what the sun brings is not light that makes us see the physical world, but it transforms. It brings the essential light of sun, the reality of sun, the reality in sun, like we said, in the sun there is no darkness. The sun doesn't recognize darkness. Light within the sun is as true, as a fundamental as darkness by us. Daylight is the sun, not the light of the sun that illuminates, makes us able to see things, physical things, but it brings the sun itself.
It's the more.
It's like the moed. It's not the moed. It's the oil, but the oil is dovuk b'hamoed. So it brings it. Now, let's project just a little bit. When we're completely open to the sun, we say, what I'm seeing is sun. Except I'm a million miles away, so it's the presence of the sun. It's not the sun itself, but nevertheless, it is the presence of the sun. What if I'm inside the house and sunlight comes through a window or through a crack in the window, where I don't see sun at all? I only see the light of the sun, the functional light of the sun. Does this functional light carry the true presence of the sun? This is the point. So we're saying that in oil, even when after the tzimtzum, and it comes in a functional manner, the oil after the tzimtzum, this is where it forms the whole Ayin from 10 spheres, Chochmah, Bina, V'das, a whole Seder Ishtalshus. So the oil is then translated in a functional level. Even there, there is an oil element that remains, pure oil remains connected to the sun.
Connected to what?
To the source, to the earth. Which means it's still representative of the earth. This is what the Rebbe set out to explain over here, and explain that there are two terms: the term oir and the term atzilus. Oir and atzilus. And the Rebbe says, right now he also didn't have much time, that the first thing is to understand that atzilus and oir are really the same thing, the same concept. We are used to saying atzilus in the world of atzilus, but what is the word atzilus mean? Atzilus means an emanation. Emanation comes from an etz. There is brio and then atzilus. Brio is not an emanation. Brio is an intentional creation. Atzilus is an emanation, which is something which emanates because there is an etz. That's why it emanates automatically. That's the difference between atzilus and brio. So atzilus is oil. Yet we have two distinct terms. One is called oir, one is called atzilus. And we will discuss the difference between them. And ultimately the point is that just like oir is dovek b'ho'etzem, atzilus is also dovek b'ho'etzem, even though it's in a different level. It still retains its connection. It is representative of the etzem, even though we see it through a functional level. You know, you said chokhmah, bina das, but essentially that chokhmah is also representative of the etzem. Okay, this we'll have to leave for the next time. I hope we, yeah.
In the mushal of the sun, saying the light which comes into the room, we're saying this is also representative of the fact that there's no shaykhus to darkness.
That's right. In essence, there is such thing. Right.
Even though there's darkness everywhere, somehow this is
That's right. No. So we take it functionally, but when you focus on the oil itself, you see that there is an element of oil that goes beyond functionality. One time we spoke about the expression, there is light at the end of the tunnel. So what's the big deal? Right now it's dark, so what does the light on the end of the tunnel do? When I get to the end of the tunnel, maybe I'll be able to have benefit, but right now I get nothing. What's the significance of that statement? Light at the end of the tunnel.
Usually it means that there's hope.
Right, but hope is still in the future. What does it do? What does it do now?
You have hope. Gives you energy. Energizes a little bit. More vitality.
Take a look. We're waiting for Mashiach.
You know, there's
all
still
that
a reality, which there's still a reality, which is not
That's the point.
out there. There's a reality.
The point is, we're in the dark. So is the darkness that the whole reality? No. The reality is light, but we don't see it. That's the message. So in other words, light is significant even if you don't see it. It's not a functional only. I know what the truth is.
Yeah.
And that really is significant. What?
No, I just wanted to add when I was going to answer the answer. That brings out, underscores the point that what we see at the end of the tunnel, which now is darkness, is not inconsistent with what's happening right now. They're both light. Like, so, eventually it'll be good. No, right now, even you see the bad, it's also the light. Okay.
That's right. We discussed it many times. Right? The only time we implied us that I'm not totally in the dark. At the end of the tunnel means on top of the tunnel it's also light. Except right now I don't see it.
You're saying the light is bringing reality. There's no such thing as darkness.
I'm sorry?
So they said light is saying there's no such
That's
thing
right.
as darkness. But how is there? But then there's darkness.
It's not really dark. It's just concealed in the dark. Concealment of the light. It's concealment. It's hiding it. So you don't see it. But not that it is really dark in essence. Behoraya, at the end of the tunnel, it's light. And you can't conceal it to the extent that there is no light.
It's not everywhere. It's not here.
So me?
You're saying that's not everywhere. It's not in the dark.
No. It's everywhere. Here you don't see it. Because here you're in the dark, so you need functionally the light. But the essence of light you have here also. See, this is what we're distinguishing between the essence of light and the functional of light. When it's daytime and you pull the shade down, is it daytime or is it nighttime? It's daytime. And that spirit is still with you, even if you don't see it.
You don't
To be continued, but this is the Nakuda of oil being connected to the earth. Okay, this is it for this morning. We convene. Okay. Rabbi Pevzer wants to has a little message here. He wants to talk to us for a moment.
יהודה, שבוע טוב, מה שלומך? ברוך השם, מה
na 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 na